Well, welcome back to Elevenses. I'm Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training, and for the next 25-30 minutes or so, I'll be taking you through some topical news, some possibly controversial views, and something to do with better biking. In today's webcast, what have we got? Well, Indian bike builders have shut production down to divert oxygen to their COVID response. Deliveroo under fire in Norwich for short-cutting roads via pavements. A road-based rally event is set for the UK. Harley Davidson have launched a new LiveWire brand, and Husqvarna are showcasing yet another e-scooter concept. And what we'll finish off by looking at is whether or not it's sensible to use budget biking kits because you only ride a few times a year. So settle yourself down with a brew, and don't forget you can join me every Wednesday and Sunday at 11, hopefully for the future. So first thing to say is yes, there was a bit of a break in service, slightly unexpected one. I headed off after a training course. I ran a training course on Thursday morning. I headed off to Oxford in the afternoon as I was having my first beer since pretty much, I think it was the beginning of December, with a buddy of mine up there. He'd booked an outdoor table. And I sort of suffered a few stomach cramps on the way back, and by 11 o'clock I wasn't feeling well at all, and by midnight it was time for the ambulance, and it was in fact a strangulated hernia. So 24 hours later I was undergoing an emergency operation. Well, I'm happy to tell you that, as you can probably see for yourself, all is well. I'm a little bit stiff around the middle still, where they obviously sliced me open, but all things considered, it could have been a damn sight worse. The impact is that I've basically had a week off to rest and recuperate. So I'm now just about getting back into the swing of catching up with work. I've got some catch up on debriefs to do from courses I ran just before I was ambulanced away, and I'll be off the bike for at least another week, probably 2 weeks, I'd think, before I can actually go riding again. So I do have a couple of courses in hand, which I will try and get booked in. But basically, I suggest that if anybody's looking to book a course with me, think about June, from beginning of June onwards, and we'll take it from there. But I'm still available to do online briefings, and so if you want to book a course for June, I can do the online stuff over the next couple of weeks, no problem at all. And if you want to take one of my online coaching sessions as well, I'm available for those. So I am getting back into the swing of things. So who've we got online this morning? Quite a few people. Jim has said hello. Alan's here. Nigel, hi again, Nigel. Paul, good to see you. Alan says the weather's awful in Torquay. It's actually quite nice here at the moment. I've got friends coming round, and hopefully we're going to sit in the garden later. But I know there are thunderstorms forecast, and Alan also says, take it easy indeed. Yes, I will. And he says, don't get ill, anyone. Yes, that's probably good advice. Right, okay, so on with the show. First story of the day, the COVID-19 crisis in India has probably caught pretty much everyone's attention, as it's pretty dramatic. But it's had not surprisingly, impacts on motorcycling out there. And at the end of last month, Honda Motorcycle and Scooter India and Hero Motorcorp, who are one of the biggest motorcycle manufacturers in the world, as well as Maruti Suzuki, who not only make motorcycles, but are also one of India's largest car manufacturers, and along with other manufacturers, all announced that they would be temporarily shutting production at plants across India. And last week, they were joined by Yamaha Motor, who also suspended production at its 2 motorcycle manufacturing facilities, at least until the end of May. And the reason for this is because oxygen is actually used in the manufacturing process. And as you probably heard, there is a nationwide shortage of bottled oxygen supplies in hospitals to help fight the COVID surge. So what they've done basically by shutting down their production lines, they are able to divert oxygen that would have gone to them towards hospitals, which is a great sort of philanthropic thing to do. Of course, there's always a little bit of a commercial rationale behind any maneuver like this. And it also turns out that by shutting down production, they actually prevent completed bikes actually piling up and having to be stockpiled at a time when many dealerships around the country are actually closed, unable to move on new machines to customers and unable to take deliveries too, obviously. But the manufacturers have been helping in other ways. They've been contributing PPE supplies and other services to local hospitals. Hero and Honda have pitched in to build temporary hospitals at the end of last month. And Suzuki Motor India have also announced that they've been donating vehicles to act as ambulances to hospitals. Some of those have already gone out, and others are going to be delivered in the very near future. And frankly, the situation in India is pretty grim. The current rolling average is getting up towards 400,000 a day. And on May the 11th, the Indian Health Ministry reported 3,700 deaths, and virtually all outside observers believe that's a considerable underestimate. So whatever the motorcycle industry can do out there to help is obviously a bonus. Back here in the UK, motorcycle delivery riders are under fire in Norwich this time, as frustrated residents are trying to prevent them from riding over pavements and up pedestrianised streets. A local who wished not to be named has apparently reported the latest incident direct to Deliveroo as a rider zoomed down a pedestrianised area. He said that I sent an email and they said they will look into it in 48 hours. Why not earlier? It's dangerous driving. The resident said it's the third time since last June that he's reported concerns, and there are also reports that motorcycle and push bike food delivery cyclists have been seen going the wrong way round the local one-way system. A resident who's lived in the area for many years says they're predominantly Deliveroo riders, and it's been going on for a few years now. Norfolk County Councillor Emma Corlett has actually raised the matter with Deliveroo. She says the situation has been getting worse, and she says it's for safety reasons. It's illegal. They need to stick to the law, not driving motorbikes through pedestrianised areas. Residents have said it's been getting worse, and I've seen it myself as I live in the area. They fly round the corner really quickly. They could encounter young children who are outside on their scooters. There's support housing as well. We have a number of wheelchair users, and it's making it really unsafe for them. So what's Deliveroo's response? Well, they claim that their drivers are told to obey the rules of the road. And in response to one of these emails, Deliveroo said all riders complete a course in road safety training before riding with the company. I'd be interested to know what course that actually is. I suspect it's CBT. Anyway, I might look into that actually if I get a moment. They also claimed that beyond this, all Deliveroo riders are given extra guidance to make sure they're focused on road safety whenever they work with us. We expect all Deliveroo riders to obey the rules of the road. Again, I might actually have a look to see if I can find out exactly what guidance that actually is. Deliveroo continue that your feedback informs the work our rider engagement team do to make sure that we reinforce the importance of safety at all times when working with Deliveroo. Well, my personal observation as a road user and around this particular area of northwest London is Deliveroo have a lot of work to do in that department. And it really begs the question about regulation of the whole food delivery industry. Now, as you probably know, I spent many years working as a motorcycle courier myself, so I certainly don't want to stop anyone earning a crust through riding a bike. I now obviously earn my main income through riding a bike by training people. So, and I personally am very, very aware, sadly, that how difficult it's actually been to earn an income over the last few months with the coronavirus disrupting everything. But there comes a point when somebody has to take some responsibility for what's going on out there on the road in terms of the food delivery industry, which is it's like the Wild West out there. I was out in the car not so long ago, and I was turning left off a main road. There's pedestrian crossing just off the turning. So obviously, as you make the turn, you have to double check for not only for cyclists coming up on your near side, you have to check the pedestrian crossing to make sure nobody's about to step off in front of you. And as there are parked cars down that side turning too, you also have to check that you've got somewhere to go straight on, because it's often blocked ahead from waiting vehicles. So while I'm doing all that, what happens? Well, a Deliveroo rider actually rides his motorcycle up the wrong side of the road, aiming for my near side, and I simply didn't spot this scooter rider who would be looking for a vehicle coming towards you on the wrong side of the road, trying to pass you on the near side from the opposite direction. Not even cyclists tend to do anything that daft. So yes, I had a near miss with that particular guy. It would have been very, very easy for him to actually gone the right side of the road and turned, because all he was doing was getting to the food place behind me. So yes, I think we're basically something has to happen, and there comes a point at which somebody has to take responsibility for this, and the food delivery companies, frankly, are showing a complete lack of will to look after their own riders. Now, for those of you with a very long memory, the similar situation actually existed in the 1980s, when the courier industry was at its height. Many of those companies were employing learner riders, but there was a bit of governmental banging of heads, and what emerged from that was a code of conduct, which meant that the members, the courier companies who signed up to it, only employed riders with a full license. Obviously, it calmed things down a little bit, and it didn't put too much strain on the courier industry, and it didn't really affect the motorcyclists either. They just went and got a license. But there was one big difference, of course. Generally speaking, courier companies back then paid decent money to riders. Obviously, the more jobs you could deliver over a set time, the more you earned, but you didn't have to ride like a lunatic just to actually pay your way. I was reading a story the other day about the riders for these companies having to use food banks themselves to feed their families, which is, frankly, is appalling. Okay, essentially it's easy to blame the riders for what goes on out there, for their sort of Wild West behavior. But if a fix is going to happen, I think it has to come from the delivery companies themselves. They have to address this problem, and retreating behind bland assurances that Deliveroo riders are given extra guidance to help make sure they're focused on road safety simply isn't acceptable. And frankly, if the delivery companies won't accept their responsibility in fix things, then I would suggest that local authorities should be able to step in. They should be able to do something about this. Yeah, okay, it will affect the riders, but it will soon hit the delivery companies and also the food suppliers in the pocket. I'm afraid we've got used to having cheap food delivered to our door, and I think we have to pay for it. That's my opinion on that, and I'm sure it'll upset a few people. Keith Wheeler says, gig economy riders were discussed at the recent meeting of the Young Rider Forum. It will be interesting to see what training these riders get. Fully agreed on that one, Keith. Yes, okay, I'll see what I can do. I might have as I say, I might have a look into that and see what goes on out there in the world. Okay, so next story. I'm all for riders getting out on their bikes and exploring. It's something I love doing on motorcycles, is basically just aiming the bike down a road I don't know and finding out where it goes. And sometimes I pop out somewhere really beautiful and exciting. But one thing I do notice is that riders do have a tendency to ride the same old roads day in, day out. I've been out on group rides occasionally, and I'm sometimes, not so excited, I have to say, by some of the routes that people choose. So I suppose I shouldn't view the new Cannonball Challenge too negatively. Now, what is it? Well, coming this summer, it's billed as a new road-based navigation event that will see road riders get a taste of the Dakar spirit without having to venture off the black stuff. It is, we're told, a road-based series of roadbook events with a difference. And you will therefore be glad to know that you don't need to invest in a rally tower, a roadbook holder, a trip, a compass, a tracker, or even a road book. To quote, we see lots of guys who want to have a go at rally style navigation, but without the huge investment, says Robert Hughes, who's founder of Rally Moto. We also get a lot of guys who love their navigation aspect, but don't want to take their new machines off road. So we've created the road oriented Cannonball Challenge. So what is it? Well, it is basically, when you cut through the advertising blurb, it's essentially a GPS route with a few extra challenges along the way, all displayed on a fancy phone app that looks a little bit like a sort of a rally road book, and also provides you with an accurate trip meter, a speedo, and a compass. So basically, you sign up to the challenge, and what you do is undertake a long distance ride, and you're awarded points for staying on track, and you are timed over particular sections, but rather than being fastest, there will be average speed checks, basically. So if you can get very close to the average speed, that's when you'll score maximum points. You'll be deducted points for getting lost, or for exceeding the speed, or falling outside the average speed for the section that you're on. Naturally, the app reports back so that the organisers can see who's actually completed the route successfully. So Rally Moto, they're the organising company, and they say they've had huge success organising similar events for off-road sections along green lanes for adventure bike riders over the last few years. And they say that the first Cannonball Challenge will be available to ride through June and July, so they've got a lot of time to finish setting this up. And it will be a route through Wales from Ruthin Castle to Raglan Castle, which is a distance of about 300 miles as their route takes them. It'll be entirely on road, so it'll be suitable for all kinds of bikes. Having said that, the event, according to the website, when I checked it the other day, is still in the planning stage. They're also talking about a series of routes taking in well-known cafes, dealers, and biking hotspots around the country. See what I mean about people going to same places day in, day out? Well, there we go. And there are longer distance overnight marathon events which would travel one end of the country to the other being planned. Not surprisingly, you don't get out for naught, and there is a membership fee involved. The basic level is £40 for a year, and you get a number of benefits, including the obligatory stickers and access to the app. And it gives you apparently access to 7 adventure Cannonball events in the UK per year. You get early notification of entries to Rally Moto events. You get access to closed to member only entry forms. And you get special member pricing for products, as well as a member-only content and video part of the website. What's not entirely clear from the website as it stands is whether there is an additional per event cost. A line in the terms and conditions talks about a non-refundable booking fee of 20% applying to booking for events, tours and activities, which implies that you will actually be charged to book yourself onto one of these events above and beyond the membership fee. So, all right, what's my opinion on that then? Well, I've done a bit of green laning on some entirely unsuitable motorcycles in the past. I've used a CB250 RS, which was at least reasonably lightweight, but I also did some green laning on my FZ 750, and I very nearly came a cropper in the middle of nowhere on that. So I can understand that somebody with only modest off-road skills and a sort of an only marginally more suitable adventure bike might actually be looking for somebody else to sort of scope out some reasonably straightforward off-road routes, rather than do what I do, which is see a line on a map and take a punt down it and get stuck in a bog, basically. And I suppose if you're a competitive person as well, you may find it fun to actually go up against other people over the same route. But I've done a few events like this in the past myself. Actually, that is my, I've still got the app picture on, so let's take that off. That is my award from the Welsh National Rally one year. I finished joint first. I was a bit disappointed to be marked down to joint first because my bike was the newer bike of the two of us who finished level on points. His bike was just 1 year older than mine, and it was 400 cc's bigger as well. So I felt I got a bit of a rough deal there. But anyway, the thing about competing in something like the national rallies is that you have to do the planning yourself, and quite frankly, that was one of the bits I found really entertaining. First of all, you get just a basic list of checkpoints, and then it's up to you to find them on the map and to plan an efficient route between them. And then you have the option to create your own road book if you want to, and that's exactly what I did. I don't know if anybody remembers the old Scion 3A, but I had one of those, and basically what I did was I used that to actually navigate my way between stages, combined with a map and road signs. This was back in the days before GPS. GPS was only just coming in. So I'm not saying that somebody else's GPS instructions is cheating, but it does seem to me that you're missing a lot of the fun of actually doing one of these kind of events, which is actually creating the route for yourself. Nevertheless, if you want more information on this, you can head over to rallymoto.co.uk. Right, so don't forget, if you have a comment or a question about any of these shows, do drop me a line and I will come back to you on that. You can set a reminder for Elevenses. It's 11 o'clock on Wednesdays and Sundays. You can catch up with any old shows here on Facebook, but they're a lot easier to find over on my YouTube channel, Survival Skills UK. Don't forget that all important UK on the end, or you'll get somebody showing you how to sharpen knives and light fires with a sort of a Boy Scout or something. So, okay, what else is going on in the world? Well, you'll probably be aware that Harley Davidson launched their first electric motorcycle, the LiveWire, back in 2019. I can't actually say that I've seen one yet. I know Charlie and Ewan used one to do one of their trips just recently. But the LiveWire has now given its name to a brand new all-electric Harley motorcycle brand, which will be named LiveWire. Now, Harley had said back in February they'd be creating a separate electric vehicle-focused division, and the LiveWire division is expected to launch its first branded motorcycle as soon as July. And it represents Harley's latest efforts to ramp up their penetration into the rapidly growing electric vehicle market, and they are aiming to attract a new generation of younger and more environmentally conscious riders. We're seizing the opportunity to lead and define the market in EVs, Chief Executive Officer Jochen Zeitz said in a statement last week. LiveWire also plans to innovate and develop technology that will be applicable to Harley-Davidson electric motorcycles in the future. Okay, so somebody else with a finger in the electric pie, as it were, is Husqvarna Motorcycles, part of the KTM family, you probably know. And you may remember that last month I showed off their E-Pillion electric motorcycle concept, which is not an unpleasant looking motorcycle, although I do sort of dislike the sawn off rear end on these things. There's never anything for a passenger to hold on to, even if there are no pillion footrests on that particular model that I can see. So that is the E-Pillion, but they are moving their commitment to electrically powered motorcycles forwards, and they've just released information on an electric scooter, which is called the Vector. Oh, that's the wrong picture. Where's my scooter gone? I've lost it. There it is. Okay, so according to the press release, that's designed to bring the future of personal electric transport into the present. And so it's described as a stylish and effective personal transport solution. It looks a bit like a box on wheels to me, but hey ho. It's firmly in the moped category with a top speed of about 45 kph, 30 miles an hour, range of 95 kilometers, which is something in the order of 60 odd miles. No other technical specifications released, but I suspect it'll probably have a removable battery so that those of you who want one but don't live with a garage or sort of an off-road charging point can actually take the battery off and charge it indoors. Both models are expected to reach production by the end of 2022, and it's also reported that Husqvarna are working on one of these electric stand-up scooters, which is codenamed Blitz. Blitz being spelled BLTZ, so no I for some reason, and that's likely to further muddy the water between what's a legally electrically propelled bicycle kind of gadget and what isn't. Okay, so on to the final bit of the show, today's better biking tip. Now this something that cropped up the other day when I was on Facebook. Somebody asked about what gear she should be buying, and she said, I'm only looking for budget kit because I only ride a few times a year. Now, what exactly do we mean by budget kit? We actually need to think about that, I consider, before we go out and sort of set limits on our spending. If we're only worried about wear and tear, and if we only ride a few times a year, then there are some compromises we can make. For example, the sole of a boot may be thick and hard wearing. My Outberg boots fell into that category very firmly. They were big chunkies, the commando sole kind of things, and they lasted for a very long time. And they were also resolable, of course. So when they did wear out, I just got a new sole put on. Or they can be thin and likely to wear out very quickly. Now, a lot of sort of the race boots fall into that kind of category there, where people are more interested in feel of the controls than they are about the wear and tear on the boot itself. So we need to think about our usage. If you're on the bike day in, day out, as I was as a CBT instructor, then a hard-wearing boot is actually quite essential. Walking around the concrete training area in particular turned out to be very, very hard on the soles. And the tip I got on the very first day from our head instructor was actually to have two pairs of boots, a cheap pair that could be resoled for wearing on the pad, and a decent pair that we wore out on the road. And in fact, that's what I did. I always swapped my boots before we went out on the road ride after a CPT. Waterproofing is another area where we can make a decision based on how often we ride. Now, my own personal preference, and I know this isn't for everybody, but again, it's based on years of courier experience, is that I tend to use a cheap nylon sort of hiking waterproof jacket over the top of my riding kit. Why? Well, for two reasons, really. You get 2 layers of waterproofing, which when you're out on the bike for 10, 12, 14 hours a day, and it can be raining sometimes for 10, 12, 14 hours a day, 2 layers are undoubtedly better than one. Trust me on that one. And the second thing is, the only fully waterproof fabric jacket I've ever found was my old Scott road jacket, which was stunningly effective at keeping the rain out. After several years of courier and instructing use, the only places it actually leaked was here, where the flex has presumably damaged the waterproof lining, and it leaked there. But equally, I was given as an instructor jacket a fairly expensive Akito. I can say Akito because they are now a defunct brand. Fairly expensive Akito waterproof jacket. And the first time I wore that in a thunderstorm, 20-minute thunderstorm, I was soaked from head to foot, basically through the jacket. It leaked on the very first wet day. After that, I tended to put the nylon jacket back over the top of that as well. So essentially what you're getting there is a sort of disposable barrier jacket, because they're so cheap you can throw them away, and that's what I normally do. Buy one new in the autumn, so it's most effective through the winter wear, and then toss it in the autumn and get a new one. And the old one usually goes in the car boot for sort of days out when it rains, when I'm shopping or something. Now, if you don't want the hassle of a flappy nylon jacket, and I can quite understand that, then you may decide that if you're only a irregular rider, that you can take a punt on a relatively inexpensive fabric jacket which says waterproof on the box, and if it lasts a couple of years before it starts to leak badly, then you've probably done okay out of it. Well, and if it does leak when it tips down, well, it won't kill you. Or you may decide that because you do a lot of miles and you're out on the bike commuting, or like me as a motorcycle instructor, that you do want a top-notch waterproof jacket. Well, they are out there, although they're a little bit difficult to find generally. And not all the brands that claim to be waterproof are actually all that effective. So you need some anecdotal evidence on that, I suspect, rather than the advertising and the price. But if there's one area where bang for buck really doesn't work, it's crash protection. And that's because if we don't fall off, we don't need it. But if we do fall off, we really do need crash protection. So it's not a cumulative issue. It's not it's not a matter of, well, it doesn't matter if we get a bit wet because we're not riding very much in the rain. We can fall off at any moment when we're riding. It has to do the job each and every time we crash. It either works or it doesn't. It can't do half a job. It can't leak a bit like a waterproof jacket. It has to actually perform or not perform. And now we have the problem of trying to work out which kit offers decent protection. And the problem is, of course, that you can't draw a line and say if it costs less than X, it's no good, and if it costs more than X, it's great. That doesn't actually work that way. There is plenty of pricey riding equipment which really doesn't perform very well when you look at it. Have a quick look at that graphic there. That's clipped this morning from MotoCap. Now, you'll probably know that I've talked about MotoCap before. It's the Motorcycle Clothing Assessment Program, and it's an independent or manufacturer independent free resource for riders. It's supported by governments and private road safety organisations across Australia and New Zealand. And essentially what MotoCap do is they destruction test their kit, as well as putting it under the equivalent of a sort of motorcycle pressure hose, and they measure how it performs, both in terms of protection but also in terms of comfort for the ride. Obviously Australian riders do have to ride, and sometimes the New Zealanders as well do have to ride in particularly high temperatures and high humidity, so comfort is actually important. And if you look at the three jackets there, you'll see that they vary in price from $3 signs to $2 signs. But what you'll see immediately is that the safety isn't directly related to the price. 2 stars from an expensive BMW jacket isn't fantastic. 3 stars for the Dainese, and only 1 star there for the Harley Davidson jacket, which is a little bit cheaper than the Dainese and the BMWs. And also notice the breathability scores are pretty poor as well. So that's MotoCap. It's definitely worth going and investigating their site and having a look at it. As I say, comfort is important. It's no good being in the most protective suit on the market if you end up feeling like a trussed chicken. Some years ago, I bought the top of the ride test gloves. They just survived a sort of destruction test pretty well, so I thought I'd get some, and they actually turned out to be very, very good gloves. But they took a lot of breaking in. They took probably a couple of months for me working day in, day out to actually soften them up enough to use them for a full day. I actually had to sort of wear them to get to work and back, and then for a couple of months before I could actually wear them all day. And for occasional riders, they probably would stay uncomfortable for some years. The same applies to helmets, of course. The sharp ratings do get some flack from riders because some of the most expensive helmets don't actually perform as well as some of the budget brands. Now, the reasons for that are pretty complex. It's not something I'm going to get into today. But ultimately, what you have to remember is that any helmet is actually tested to a pretty rigorous standard already. We have a CE standard for motorcycle clothing, but as we've discussed here before, the lowest A rating, the lowest A rating is not very high and can be achieved by ordinary denim. The AAA standard isn't as high as the old level 2 used to be, so it's worth looking at the Moto Cap ratings. But for helmets, they all deliver a pretty good standard of protection. So I'm less concerned on helmets that the helmet giving a fairly low rating is actually that awful. It's easy to assume that 1 star isn't, you wouldn't put your head in it if somebody paid you. But the most important thing with any helmet really is fit, because if it comes off your head in an accident, doesn't matter how technically good the helmet is on an impact test, if it's not on your head, it won't be doing any good whatsoever. So have a think about the sharp ratings as well, but don't get hung up on the idea that getting the particular brand is best because it's most expensive. Definitely a big mistake. So all that has been a bit waffly today, but what I will sum up is by saying that we can compromise on issues like wear and tear and waterproofing to some extent, but when it comes to crash protection, it really isn't about outright cost. We really do need to think about our performance on how we're doing, just going to put the links to, oops, no, that's the wrong button. I want that button there. That's the links to Moto Cap and Sharp coming up, so you can go and have a look at those for yourselves. So basically, independent standards are important because they give you an independent assessment of how kit stacks up. Simply looking at dollar signs or pound signs in the shop is not the way forward. So the answer to the question was, don't simply look at budget clothing because you are perhaps on a budget and because you don't ride very often, but look at budget clothing which performs well. And you have 2 ways here of actually finding budget equipment that performs well. Right, okay, so that'll do for today. What have we got here? We've got a couple of comments. Nigel says, wouldn't the council crackdown affect their civil enforcement riders as well? That's an interesting point, actually. That's because what Nigel's referring to there is that councils use learner riders to ride around on scooters to do things like issue parking tickets. So that one's interesting. And Martin says, my interview with Dr. Chris Hurren, the man behind Moto Cap, is how he found me in the first place. Well, good to see you're still here, and I'm keeping you interested, Martin, after all this time. That was over a year ago. So yeah, okay. So the links there are to Moto Cap and Sharp. Do go and look at those, and that'll give you an independent overview of just how helmets and riding kit generally performs. So just a couple of things before I sign off. Don't forget there is a bell icon on the live video feed. If you click that, you will be subscribed to these videos, and you should get a reminder. You will need to go full screen on a laptop to see it, apparently. Don't forget the resources which I offer are over on my Coffee page and on my YouTube channel. You can, if you wish, head over to Coffee and you can support me, and that will help me continue to produce these webcasts and lots of better biking tips. There's over 400 at the moment over on Coffee, and I'm in the middle of putting 2018's articles up at the moment. And of course there's the Survival Skills UK channel on YouTube, and there are now over 30 better biking 60-second safety videos over there for you to watch. That's it for today. I shall be back on Wednesday. Thank you all very much for looking in. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now from Kevin Williams of Survival Skills.